Hey friends, it's Joe from DadBod. Today it's around 81 degrees in Tokyo, wicked humid, and we're in the middle of a typhoon, which is fun. It's day 73, around 5:13 in the morning, so let's get to work. So for today's workout, we just have a nice light recovery run. Let's see if I can get everything situated. Should be a fun one, nice and easy. We'll see how my hips are faring from the 8 mile. So let's get to work. It's also slippery down here, so take it easy. I'm gonna try to jog it, but we may end up in a walk. We'll see. Whew. I'll tell you what, my mind is racing this morning. Got crippling anxiety. It's real. All right. You ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Nice and mellow. It's misty today. OG-san rocking it. That man's consistency is so commendable. All right. Nice and mellow. Try to keep your cardio down. All right. Monday we did the hard work. Today should be light work. But yeah, I just woke up really overwhelmed by some of the tasks I have to do today, both on the home front, content creation front, grad school front, and then there's some new things I have to do for work that involve a lot of translation. And I am not fluent in Japanese, borderline intermediate. So like a lot of insecurity with that as well. But someone from the US called in a favor and I'm like, crap, how am I gonna do that? So I think that's what's floating in my mind right now. It's just like all the things. And how do I organize them? Which ones do I do first? Which ones are most important? And when I feel, muddy. When I feel like I'm drowning in all those thoughts before the day begins, I normally have 2 outcomes. And this may be similar for you. Outcome number 1, I get overwhelmed and then I hit that scroll. I start finding fake rest in TikTok and crap. I burn a lot of time. I don't complete what I think is critical. Feel worse about it and myself, and the day's lost. And I just push those feelings of being overwhelmed to the next day. Or the second outcome, and it's not a true binary, right? The second outcome, I make a list. Or even better, I make a block schedule. I will literally look at everything on my mind. I'll brain dump it. I'll write it all out in a list, relatively in order. And then I will prioritize the hardest or most important tasks and do those first. The humidity, friends, is so thick. So thick. Whew.
but I'll prioritize it. And then I schedule the day in 15-minute increments, which sounds crazy, but just helps me give every task a spot. And naturally I try to embed some buffer, right? We're not machines. We can't be perfectly productive. How gozaimasu. How gozaimasu. So we're not going to be perfectly productive, but it kind of gives me like a mental anchor on where the day's going and what's important. How do I juggle? So that's option 2. And my day normally lands in the in-between of lost time and structured time. So in my head, I'm already warring with myself, not about what's most important and what I'm gonna do, but really, can I face these anxieties, insecurities, fear of failure, and not give my day over to impending doom. How gozaimasu. Can I overcome that fear of failure, feelings of overwhelm, fake rest, self-sabotage, all the things that get in my way? And I'm gonna walk it out. Heart rate's, it's climbing a little more than I want. Whew. And I'm tingly. I take a pre-workout. It's called C4. I've never really been a fan of it, but it's got something in it. I forgot what, that like makes my skin itchy sometimes. Deadlifts. 1, 2, 3. Nice twist. Let's do 2 more. Woo. Squeeze. I'm gonna work on striding with good form and a brisk walk. I'll tell you what, from those squats yesterday, it's pretty bad hitting squats after running 8 miles. But you know what might be the same or a little bit worse? Hitting a run after a day of squats. If you really went after it, you should feel it today. My back also feels really taut from all the rows. What was up with those strict presses? My goodness. So anyway, friends, at 5:20 in the morning, that is exactly where my brain is at. I'm just trying to figure out like where do all the all the pieces of life fit, right? How do I put all this together? How do I find a sense of purpose and direction and accomplishment? How do I kind of own my unique approach to time management as I float things across time zones? How do I stay consistent? How do I show up for myself and those around me? Sorry, nice little back stretch. So those are all the things. Let's pick it up. That was good though. We got our heart rate down, got a little bit of stretch in, finding our core, gauging that, working on finding our shoulder position. That mirror yesterday, that mirror was so helpful for me. Like, even the surprise for the mirror was the single leg eccentric squats, because I was able to have a lot more control and kind of activate the right muscles through the range of motion, because I could see my posture. Whereas prior to that, for the first 70 days or so, it was all off of feelings of imbalance, of where I thought my posture was supposed to be. Oh no. Where's the snake? Snake. Whew. Back into a labored walk. But yeah, so 2 days after 8 miles, how do you feel? Y'all are like, Joe, I haven't been able to walk for 2 days. I've been crawling on my hands and knees from room to room. We're never gonna do a half marathon. We're never gonna make it. More. Whew. There we go. Every once in a while I get a little bit of a shift or pop in my hips when I do these, in a good way. Because when we sleep, our bodies settle, our joints, all that. So when you choose some active movement in the morning, something's got to kind of pop back in the right spot, safely, of course. And you typically want to start a workout like this with dynamic stretching. A lot of times growing up in high school and stuff, again, I always go back to high school. That's when I was doing a lot of physical things. I was a 3-sport athlete for a while, and like, based on what I've learned in the last decade, there's a lot of things that I was taught and then trained to do in high school that are just not aligned with the science. One of them is like static stretching. There's a time and a place for it, but doing static stretching before you hop into the ring in a wrestling match, for instance, or football, it's just promoting injury. Like, you should be doing dynamic stretching. That's why the runner's warm-up is more dynamic in nature. I don't know. You could light me up in the comments if you disagree. Go ahead and post all your peer-reviewed double-blind studies on dynamic versus static stretching. That's why, like, the Moose Stretch A, B, and C, they all are fairly dynamic. Actually trying to replay it in my head. I don't think there's a single movement in there where it's like, let's sit in full range of motion. So for instance, the trunk twist, the old man stretch that I call it, right? The static version of that, you lay on your side with your knees at 90. And friends, I'm gonna walk it out to a mile. I got a little bit of hip discomfort, upper back instability. So I'm actively working on just squeezing the walnut, tucking the tailbone, finding core, finding a lean, getting good posture, and keeping pace. I could run, but I don't want to run things into the wrong range of motion right now. So that's where I'm at. But like for the old man stretch, by the way, I'm sorry for my conversations as they jump from half a topic to another half a topic. It's kind of like when, and I don't mean anything political by this, but like when Donald Trump gives a speech, man, he'll hit like 8 topics in 14 seconds, and it's like, how did we get here? What? He can fill the air with words. Ideas so intensely. This video is not a Trump 2024, Biden 2024 kind of post. It's just an observation of public speaking. So anyway, friends, old man stretch. If we were doing that static, you would twist your arms open, right? Feel that stretch between your shoulder blades. And then you would just sink into it. You would just keep letting the body go to where it wants to settle. Further and further. And you'd maybe hold it for 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds if you really settle into it. But I don't know, research shows, study shows, like I've read all the studies, but like that approach, if you do that right before a workout, you're actually more likely to injure than not injure. We're at 0.94. Oh, nice, it's gonna be a rainy one. Unexpected. Let's get the phone in a bag. Crap. It's not a big enough bag either, is it? Nope, phone's not going in a bag. Just gonna hope for the best. Alright, we're almost at a mile. It was just nice little sprinkle. You know, and I used to stretch like that. I used to do everything static, full range of motion, right? Super bendy. And when I started going to physical therapy, and again, this is a coaching for Joe talk, right? This is me learning my body. Your body might be different. But when I came in with all of my L4, L5 pain, sciatica, inability to sleep through the night, like I was waking up every hour and a half with pain, like locked out hip, tons of discomfort, lots of neck, shoulder mobility issues. My physical therapist, when they started working on me, she's like, well, we're not sure, right? You're not formally diagnosed, but you probably have, it's got a fancy name. I always want to say ED, but it's not ED, that's erectile dysfunction. It's like Danlinger syndrome or something. Danlos syndrome. You know, like basically all of my ligaments are hypermobile. And when I do stretches and things, snooze that sucker. When I do my stretches and everything, and you're at a mile, so you can turn it back. A lot of times I don't do certain movements like a plank, engaging my muscles, but I'd actually do everything driven by tendons. So my tendons were carrying more load than muscles, and I don't exactly know the difference between those two from a kinesthesiology perspective. I don't know, but when they're doing a lot of evaluations on how I hold a plank, how I do a squat, I wasn't able to fire certain muscles. So I did a lot of like dry needle therapy, which is hell. They basically take like a very small needle and they stick it into your body, and then they'll find a nerve ending and they jiggle it or they electrocute it to stimulate muscle contractions. And like there was a good 4 weeks of therapy where they were just sticking those inside my hip socket or inside my glute to get muscle contractions, to like train those muscles to activate and fire. And I was still running multiple miles a week, but I wasn't running with my glutes, which is correct. I was running with like tendons and putting load on really weird parts, and I was doing too many static stretches. So it's hypermobile. So my sacrum was like overstretched, and your sacrum kind of supports your spine, and it was too open and bending, which was putting a lot of load on my L5, L4, I forget which one's near the sacrum. And long story short, as we go through the therapy of Joe, the coaching or wisdom given to me from Eden, my PT, who is absolutely brilliant, honestly like the best physician I've ever had in my life. She worked with me for years. She was like, I need you to stop stretching. I was like, what do you mean? Because for me, stretching felt good. Let's turn it back. It's 0.2 shy, but I just don't want to get in OG Sun's world. Rainbow! Rainbow! There's no other end. But we got a rainbow. It's so beautiful. Whew. But yeah, she was like, Joe, you got to stop doing static stretching. And for me, stretching was the only feel good connected with my running and lifting. So I would always overstretch. I would always have one side of my sacrum was overstretched wider than the other. So I always was pulling my body out of posture because, and it was different from section to section all the way up. But like, I was always kind of pushing my body too far from a mobility issue because my body just naturally goes farther. And it was kind of like a flex for me in high school. No pun intended. But it was kind of like I wasn't the fastest, I wasn't the biggest, I was still pretty big, you know. And for me, like at football, it was always cool to like do a butterfly stretch and get my face all the way to my feet in full pads, and people be like, what the heck's wrong with you? I'd be like, look at how flexible I am, look at how much better I am than you. 8 years later in therapy for years because I just didn't know that was wrong. Oh, we got a full white rainbow now. Wow. Maybe we'll get a double rainbow all the way. That's a, you could look up double rainbow, it'll make your day. But yeah. So I can't do static stretching. I can do yoga. But even Eden was like, she's like, you can't do yoga. Like, because I didn't have the body awareness to know what was, I'm gonna jog a little bit. I didn't have the body awareness to know what was a safe range of motion for activities like that, right? Just like we've been training you to have a body awareness when you run. Is your glute squeezed? Are you running with your glutes? Is your tailbone tucked? Do you have a gradual lean? Right? And when you fall out of that mid-run, to recognize that and modify pace and intensity appropriately so that you can run safe. And what Eden was telling me was, hey, you can't do yoga safe right now. It's not good for you. It's hurting your body. Even though you feel super competent at that. What she pushed me towards and what we focus on in this program is back and core stabilization and strength, not mobility. So her emphasis with me wasn't on more stretching to improve range of motion. She was like, you can't run unless you find your core and your back. Essentially, you gotta run with all these other parts of your body that you've been neglecting. So she was like, if you're sore before or after a run, instead of stretching or overstretching, you gotta go hold a plank. And I was like, but planks suck. That's not relaxing. But what she recognized was that for me in my training, it wasn't about what was comfortable. When I was doing things that made me comfortable, it was really short-term alleviation, long-term sustained chronic pain. It was a symptom, right? We're treating symptoms. She was going for the root And that meant doing planks, doing like anything with core. I can't think because I'm wet. I'm just gonna try to get to the stairs. Beautiful rainbow though. Whew. So anyway, friends, it's been a crazy journey for me personally with all of this, and I'm sure 73 days in, it's still a journey for you, right? 73 days in, we don't have all the answers. Fitness is a lifelong journey, and there's always tweaks, there's always adjustments, there's always new learnings. Things we used to do don't always work anymore. There's your last rainbow view. Things you used to do aren't always what you should be doing. And with different positions, different voices in your life, it gives you the knowledge and the space to safely experiment little by little to find what works for you. I don't know how we got there because I'm like processing through today's video, and I was like, man, I started out this workout with all this anxiety and all these things I need to do, and now I'm like, static stretching is bad. It's not what I'm saying. There's a place for it, and embedding it in your training routine correctly could be really valuable, but you're not going to find a lot of it, really any of it, in this program. Everything you're going to find is dynamic. Because dynamic eases you in, rolls you out. I think the only static stuff is on like the recovery stay flexy workout, which you may have been doing. I think it's like the stretch flow or something. And even with that, a large portion of that is dynamic flow. It's yoga-esque, but it's a little bit rushed. So it's not mellow, fun yoga. I didn't want to give you a 30-minute workout. I think at the end, there are a couple static crossover things, stuff like that. But yeah, that body awareness, it's just something that's not taught. Something I've had to learn as I get into my 30s. Because even in high school, could you imagine if all high school football coaches, again, football is my working methodology from what I knew, like, if all high school football coaches were taught that it's not about an ego lift, because that's part of football, right? You're training kids to push their limits, to do the impossible, to beat their opponent. That's like linearly what football culture is, right? Outwork, out hustle, destroy, no limits. We push past every limit. That mindset is okay most times, but the amount of kids we have pushed through injury because we teach them not to be aware of their body, not to feel, not to think, I think it's really, really damaging long term. You know, so they roll an ankle and they go back and go right back to practice and play hurt. There's learnings from that. I've done that kind of stuff. For some people, that decision can stay with their body the rest of their life because in a trade-off decision, they weren't taught the discretion to care for themselves, right? I still have knee injuries from my sophomore year of high school. My left knee, that mobility that I have, sinking into a squat. If someone had told me, hey, don't play through that hurt, you're JV anyway, it doesn't matter, but you're gonna have to live on that knee for the rest of your life, that would have been really helpful. Or what if these coaches We're actually teaching kids how to lift and fire the right muscles at the right time. If they were less concerned about having, instead of Bay of Pigs, that's the wrong, it's overthrow of Castro. I don't know why my brain put that together. But if they're less concerned about taking 8 members of the team, circling them around one guy and screaming at him while he deadlifts his PR with poor form and puts all this unnecessary compression on his spine because he hasn't built up with discipline over time. You're trying to rush these results and do this mind over matter kind of crap. And maybe with a high school body, a college body, you can do that. Your body recovers, you can overcome, right? You're less likely at that age to get truly damaged by it. That still can't happen, by the way. But what happens when he's 27 years old, kind of hit a rut with fitness, has been living a sedentary lifestyle, raising 2 kids, decides to get back into fitness, but he's adapting to his dad bod, but he's still living under that high school football limitless ego mentality. It means he's going to put too many weights on the rack, he's going to squat and blow out a knee, he's going to slip a disc in his back because he thinks that he can get to the same level of results in a couple weeks if he grunts and yells enough. It's an exaggeration, but these mindsets we're entrained with are very real. And honestly, a lot of the DadBod program, a lot of this walking, running, podcast thing that we're doing here, it's just to consistently shift mindset a little bit. It's very hard to train, to retrain, and locked behaviors and locked thoughts. Right? And these thoughts are about ourselves, they're about how we can push ourselves, how we see ourselves. From a psychological perspective, it's really hard to change people, but there's so much in our culture already that's trying to influence and tweak people. So I hope 73 days in, I'm on the right path with you, because there's definitely days in this journey where I'm like, I should just stop. Because again, I haven't been putting these videos out yet, I've just started. So I'm not getting the feedback loop out here jogging and walking in the rain like a crazy person, trying to model what good, safe recovery looks like. But hopefully I am helping you erase the influence of that bad football coach. And they didn't mean any harm. They just had the wrong goals for you when it comes to your lifelong fitness and wellness journey. It's really high today. Well, how exciting was, right? So they had the wrong goals. I mean, I had football coaches that'd be like, high school football is the greatest days of your life. And I remember as like an almost wise junior in high school hearing that speech. My coach was like, I would give anything to come back to these days on the high school field under the Friday night lights. I was like, really? Really? You haven't found any purpose, joy, or direction in like your vocation or job or the family you've raised, the friendships you've built, the experiences you've had? You'd put that all on a shelf just to have your 17-year-old, 18-year-old body running around and hitting people under these lights? That was like, that inspirational speech for me was like, oh man, I don't want to end up like that. I gotta go to college. I gotta go use my brain. I gotta find a way to do something meaningful and fun besides the joy of football. Even though football's great, I love football. And it'll be cool if my kids end up picking it up. And in Japan, there's a lot less competition, so it's easier to get a starting spot. 1.94, by the way, friends. So hopefully this journey, if it's done anything for you, you feel empowered and you just you're reasonable now, all right? We can have the right pacing for progress. It's harder for our bodies to change every decade that we get older. I have been logging my food, logging what I'm eating, why I'm eating it. Now there can be a nutritionist or an Instagram influencer that comes in and be like, well, here's the 3 things you need to tweak, and then boom, 40 pounds gone. Maybe. Or maybe at 31, it's just a little tricky, right? And that's okay. It's okay that it's harder. My body holds more fat. Maybe someday I find that intermittent fasting is the way for me. But I don't want to project my way into someone else's world. I just want you to see what you're eating, why you're eating, and to have healthy, long-term expectations with yourself. This progress comes over the course of months, and it doesn't show up on the scale or in the aesthetics instantly. There are other programs if that's what you want. We're talking holistic, sustained health, injury prevention, throwing your grandkids around kind of journey. Wow, river's running today. I'm gonna give you a little bit of reflection. We'll just hang out, enjoy the high water today. Super high, it's covering the rocks. Your day's 73 in, all right? You got 5.5 weeks left till the half. Maybe think about what's a mindset you gotta let go of to finish this journey, something you've held on to. And then we'll wrap up. But enjoy the water, friends. All right, friends. Well, your word of the day, as I've reflected on everything we've kind of talked about, at least for me, and the mindset I have to let go of, is just perfection. Like, there's no room for perfection at this stage in my journey as a dad with 3.5 kids in grad school, challenging myself into global leadership, trying to run this half marathon. Like, everything overlaps, it's difficult, it's hard, and it's messy. And I just have to show up in kind of the messy middle of my life and keep taking incremental steps forward and kind of view things as progress, not perfection. So I'm not gonna be able to record a perfect workout for y'all, not gonna be able to run a perfect pace, not gonna be able to finish all the crap that I woke up with on my mind, but I'm gonna show up and do the best I can and miss that, give myself grace when I need it, and just keep pushing on. So, see you around, friends. You got Moose Lift 3B tomorrow? I think it's 3B. So I'll see you around. Have a good one.